Hi, my name's Keshava, and I want to tell you a few stories from this little book that I wrote shortly after the death of Sri Anandamurti, who was my guru. For those of you who don't know anything much about yoga, that's okay. And for those of you who know something about yoga, it's probably not very accurate anyway. And for you guys who were devotees of Anandamurti, maybe these things will mean something to you too. But this is really something that I want to share with everyone. I'll start by not starting in the beginning, but tell you a story. When I became initiated into yoga, there was going to be a national retreat in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And it was the early 70s, and I guess I was thinking more of like this romantic notion of being on a pilgrimage or a spiritual quest or whatever. And so I decided to hitchhike from Birmingham, Alabama to Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And so I packed my bag and I hit the road, and quite incredibly, I was picked up and taken halfway to Memphis, and then another ride took me to Memphis, but that time it was nighttime. And I remember walking across the bridge over the Mississippi River in Arkansas and camping out that night. And the next morning I got up and did my meditation, the things one does in the morning, some asanas. And I packed my bag and I hiked on to the entrance ramp to the interstate there, I think I-40. And I walked down the interstate and I stuck out my thumb. And within a few minutes a car stopped, and I ran to the car and got in. The person had been driving for a long ways, I think from New England, and he was really happy to have somebody to talk to and to help him drive. And he asked me to drive, and I did drive. And we'd been going down the road maybe a half hour or so, and he asked me where I was going, and I said, well, I'm going to Oklahoma. He said, well, that's interesting. I'm going to Oklahoma too. I said, fantastic. He said, where in Oklahoma are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Tahlequah, to university there. He said, so am I. And I said, yeah, I'm going there to attend a retreat or seminar on yoga there by an organization called Anandamurti. And he said, so am I. And we were like, what can you say? What can you say? So that is an interesting story, and it's typical of a lot of things that can happen to a person when they're on a spiritual journey, and there's no way really to explain it, so I'm not going to try. But I'll say this. In the very beginning of my experience with yoga, I had been drafted into the military, and I wasn't going to go, but I went and took my physical and failed it. And another brother there also failed his physical. This brother rode down there with me on the bus to Montgomery and back, and we had this deep conversation, and it was almost like uncanny that we had met, and we said goodbye, and we thought we'd never see each other again. And a few months passed, and on the radio I heard that there was going to be a lecture by some yogi, and I had been studying yoga from a book, learning asanas and simple techniques of meditation, and I was like, wow, So I went down. It was at the engineering building at the University of Alabama, and I had this idea that there's going to be this gymnasium full of people like with Yogananda and all these, and I'd be looking for a place to sit. When I got there, the place was empty, except for just a few people in the front aisle, maybe 6, 7, 8 people, who were basically people in the organization, and the yoga teacher, Acharya Jagadeva, from Holland who was going to give the lecture. And this other brother, I went down, I sat beside him. It's the same guy on the bus going to my Army physical. And we were like, oh brother, what does this mean? But when Acharya Jagadev spoke, you know, I was like, well, this is really what I've been waiting to hear. You know, I didn't know anybody else was thinking this way and doing this sort of thing. And I went to the meditation center that evening and to the next evening. And it was, I think, like a Friday and a Saturday. That Monday I went to work and I carried a small newspaper that they gave me. And I was sitting in my desk and I was reading it. It's getting ready to go to lunch. And I remember reading this phrase, Baba Nam Kevalam, love is all there is. Anyway, I got my bag and I went to lunch, and which was across the street in an area which had been a residential area, but the houses had been cleared to build an addition to the university. And I was sitting up these steps on a sidewalk where a house once stood, and I was sitting there and I was thinking. And I looked and I saw a piece of brick with a piece of mortar, cement on it. And I was holding it in my hand. And then I looked across the city, and there was this red brick building. And at that moment, this thought came in my head, you know, and it was an inspiration. And basically, the thought that came into my head is that love is the cement that can help cement human society together. And the inspiration was flowing. I took out a picture, I took out a pencil and paper, and I wrote down a poem about that. And this poem was stuck on my wall later. But as I'm finishing the poem, I hear a noise, you know, and it's an area where there's not any traffic really. And I heard a truck coming, and I looked, and here comes a big, brand new orange cement truck. And as it passes me, the person inside is smiling and waving at me. And that's another story. Now, I'm not going to interpret these stories for you. You're going to have to interpret them yourself if you want to. But I wrote down a lot of my experiences in this little book after the death of Sri Anandamurti in October of 1990. And they were very short and simple, and that's the way I wanted them to be. But they meant a lot to me, and they might mean something to you. I don't know. But for all you people who are aware of the life and times of Anandamurti, I want to tell you about a dream that I had the day after he died. Because I do want to share it with you, because I don't think that I should keep it up to myself. October the 21st, 1990. The day after Baba's departure, I woke from a Baba dream. In the dream, I saw him lying as a corpse. A woman was standing at his side, sprinkling perfume water on his body. His feet were uncovered, and 3 children were crawling over his feet. The children were only infants. The woman was full of sorrow. However, the infants were unaware of the situation. They were absorbed only in their play at his feet. I looked at Baba's face, and he was smiling with pleasure. The play of the children was giving him pleasure, and he moved his head back and forth with a smile in a gesture of pleasure and love. And I woke from this dream. Well, that's all I'm going to say now. I'm going to make a few more videos and get more into depth of some other dreams and experiences that I've had. So for now, goodbye and namaskar.